Welcome back, I'm Dale. Now, if you die in Nova Scotia with $1 million estate, the court takes over $16,000 just to stamp your will. Die in Manitoba, and that same stamp costs $0. Same country, same $1 million, a $16,000 difference based purely on your postal code. Today, I'm ranking every province and territory in Canada by probate fees, from free to brutal. And stick around, because one province quietly tripled its rate this summer, and if you live there, your family's bill just went up by thousands. At the end, I'll walk you through the legal moves that can shrink this bill no matter where you live, plus a 5-minute homework assignment your family will thank you for. Quick note before we start. This is general information, not legal, tax, or financial advice. Fees and rules change, and they differ by situation. Talk to an estate lawyer and a qualified financial advisor before making decisions. All right, let's rank. First, 30 seconds on what probate even is. When you die, your will usually has to be validated by a court before banks and land registries will let your executor touch your assets. That court process is probate, and most provinces charge a fee based on the size of your estate. Not your profit, not your gains. The value of the assets passing through probate, calculated under your province's rules. It's often called the last tax you'll ever pay. And here's why it stings. Financial institutions usually won't release large accounts until they see that court stamp. So while the paperwork crawls along, and that can mean months, your family can be stuck waiting, with the mortgage, the utilities, and the funeral bill still coming. Quick note if you're the executor, by the way. As a rule, this fee comes out of the estate itself, not your personal pocket. But it does come out before estate beneficiaries inherit, which is exactly why the size of it matters. So, from cheapest to most expensive, on our example, $1 million estate, here we go. Tier 1, the free zone. Manitoba charges nothing. They abolished probate fees entirely in 2020. And Quebec is nearly free too, with one huge catch. If your will is a notarial will, made with a notary, it skips probate completely. A regular handwritten or witnessed will in Quebec still needs court verification, and while the court filing fee is only a couple of $100s, notary and legal costs can add more. Tier 2, the flat fee club. Up north, the Yukon caps out around $140. The Northwest Territories and Nunavut top out around $400. And here's the big surprise, Alberta. No matter how large the estate, 10 million, 100 million, Alberta's probate fee is capped at $525. And no, that's not a typo. A $100 million estate pays the same $525 as a modest one. On our $1 million estate, that's about 5% of what Nova Scotia charges. Quick pause before we climb into the expensive tiers. Drop your province in the comments right now before we get to it. Let's see who's about to get a surprise. Tier 3, the middle of the pack, where fees scale with your estate. Prince Edward Island comes in around $4,000 on $1 million, Newfoundland and Labrador about $6,000, Saskatchewan about $7,000. Real money but not devastating. And now, Tier 4, the brutal zone. British Columbia charges about 1.4% above $50,000. On our $1 million estate, that's roughly $13,500. And here's the plot twist I promised you. New Brunswick used to be cheap, but as of June 2026, they've tripled their top rate and now take about $14,100 on our $1 million. Ontario is right there with them. 1.5% on everything above $50,000. Call it $14,250. And the heavyweight champion of Canadian probate, Nova Scotia. Nearly 1.7% on larger estates, which works out to over $16,000 on our $1 million. One more detail that surprises people. Depending on your province, the fee can be calculated on the value of your assets before some debts are deducted, though some provinces, like Ontario and New Brunswick, do let you deduct a mortgage on real estate. So why does this matter beyond trivia? Because unlike income tax, probate fees can sometimes be reduced with advanced planning. Here are the legal moves that shrink the bill. 1. Name beneficiaries directly. Your RRSP, RRIF, TFSA, pensions, and life insurance can pass outside your will to a named beneficiary and skip probate, where provincial law and the plan permit. For most families, this is the single biggest saving. And one detail worth knowing on the TFSA. Naming your spouse as successor holder rather than just beneficiary can keep the account itself tax-sheltered in their hands. One word on the designation, very different result. Ask your bank which one yours actually says. 2. Joint ownership with right of survivorship. Outside Quebec, a home owned jointly with your spouse in a valid joint tenancy can pass automatically to the survivor, no probate. But be very careful adding adult children to titles. It can trigger capital gains tax, expose your home to their creditors and divorces, and spark family disputes. This one needs professional advice. 3. If you own a business in Ontario or BC, ask your lawyer about multiple wills. One will for assets that need probate, another for private company shares that may not need it. This move alone has saved some families tens of thousands. And 4. If you're in Quebec, get a notarial will. It's the cheapest probate hack in the country. And to be fair, sometimes probate simply can't be avoided. Land registries, banks, and disputed estates can require that court grant no matter how well you planned, and that's okay. The goal was never zero. The goal is not paying more than your province actually requires. Now, before the final warning, here's that 5-minute homework. Log into your bank or ask your advisor one simple question. Who is actually named as beneficiary on my RRSP, my TFSA, and my life insurance? People are regularly shocked by what they find. Ex-spouses, parents who passed away years ago, or nobody at all. 5 minutes. And it could keep those accounts or proceeds out of probate. If you do check, come back and tell us in the comments what you found. One warning to close. Don't let the tail wag the dog. On larger estates, percentage-based probate charges are, in most cases, around 1 to 2% at most. The income taxes on your final return, the ones we covered in my last video, can be 40 times bigger. Avoid probate where it's easy, but build your estate plan around the big taxes first. If you missed that video, it's on screen now. So let's recap the board, cheapest to priciest. Manitoba and Quebec with a notarial will, free. The territories and Alberta, flat fees under $600. PEI, Newfoundland, Saskatchewan, a few thousand. And the brutal zone, BC, New Brunswick, Ontario, and your champion, Nova Scotia, at $16,000 and change. If someone you love lives in that brutal zone, this might be the most useful video you could send them this year. If you learned something, subscribe. Every video on this channel hands you one more lever, one more trap to avoid, and one more question worth asking a professional. Next time, the 6 assets that can skip probate entirely and how each one gets set up where the rules allow it. See you there.